American minister and abolitionist Theodore Parker once said, "The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice." This sentiment was echoed by Martin Luther King Jr., and he popularized it so much that it is now known as one of his most important quotes. It is an affirmation that goodness always prevails and that hope in a better world is never in vain, even in the darkest of moments. Hope has always been one of the most powerful elements of positive change, but believe it or not, hope is a controversial concept. It is argued that it is a North Star for some on the leadership to freedom, and others argue that it is a futile dream that encourages inaction. The quote represents hope itself, and it has been interpreted as a soothing, comforting lie that will encourage us to rely on the universe or a cosmic power rather than our own efforts to deliver the antidote to the poison of the world. And I wonder, is this really what that quote means? Is the story of humanity really a story of uninterrupted progress? If that is the logic, then I would have to agree with those who criticize the quote. The trend of progress has never been continuous. It's been interrupted, derailed, and reversed. The darkness that we see in humanity, mainly man's inhumanity to man, is not a plague, but rather part of a default condition of the world. Now, we can argue that positive advancement has been continuous throughout human history, but when it comes to the experience of millions of people in our world and across human history, it would be dishonest to say that everybody has experienced the positive advancement. We have all borne witness to it at some point. The perilous conditions of poverty, the horrible abuse of power towards people who are the most vulnerable, and the devastating effects of war. It can be argued that humanity is responsible equally for both a hopeful and a hopeless world. Benjamin Ferencz was a testament to this principle. He was the chief prosecutor of the Nuremberg trials, which recognized the crimes of the Nazi regime against humanity during World War I. He was so involved in the investigation of one of the darkest periods of human history that he took a piece of it with him until the day that he died. However, much to many people's surprise, he lived a long life championing radical optimism. In his very last book, called Parting Words, he emphasized the importance of controlling what we can control and focusing on long-term progress. To me, his three most important prescriptions for the rest of us are: choose to be good, continue pushing the rock a little bit further up the hill, and 3, focus on the horizon. Choosing to be good means to not become what you hate. When you become what you hate, you become an enemy, and you continue the cycle of violence. Vengeance has caused far too many innocent people to become casualties for fights that they never joined. Secondly, what it means to continue pushing the rock up the hill is to not exhaust yourself with expectations towards perfection or instant change. Just focus on what you can achieve and improve your strategies the more that you learn. Lastly, keeping your eye on the horizon means staying focused on what's the most important thing. Don't be distracted by things like alarmist news, which I think is more relevant now today than it ever has been. In this day and age, we are conditioned to feel more powerless over our situations and the events of the world. We are constantly bombarded with catastrophes and tragedies that are out of our control, leaving us feeling anxious, paralyzed, and under the false impression that good one day will come to an end. When you read that headline detailing a catastrophe and you feel that sense of hopelessness in your body that causes you to panic, shut down, even looking for somebody to point the finger at, know that it is all orchestrated. It's orchestrated so that you can lose focus on the work that you can do. Don't fall for it. I'm not saying that we must be uninformed, uninvolved, or unengaged. What I'm actually saying is be engaged with a purpose. We must resist the pull into despair. We must resist the notion that we can only be scared and divided. We have to remember that above all else, humanity is compassionate, resilient, and powerful. Benjamin's story is the story of humanity to me, of what humanity can be. He lived a life of purpose and was able to develop the largest institution of accountability for crimes against humanity. He lived with so much optimism, so many things that we could learn from. And knowing that humanity can face such dark chapters and redeem itself through correction and intentional preservation of just values is something that I carry with myself in my moments of discouragement. Now, this is not just a shallow symbol of comfort for me. Really, it's a responsibility for me to remember the role that we all play in upholding justice. Now, it may seem sometimes like a better world is out of our grasp. A lot of people have advocated for a better world, and many will never live to see the end of their fight. But to quote the critic of the moral arc principle, that does not mean that our obstacles are unable to be overcome or that we can't shoot ourselves into flight. These achievements can only be sustained and brought into fruition through our efforts. So really, nothing can bend towards justice without us bending it. And the story of humanity to me is that it's up to the good in us to influence and lead the moral arc of the universe that it might bend towards justice. So my wish is that in the midst of trying times, constant projections of grim futures, and overwhelming evidence against the goodness of humanity, we still will never lose hope. Thank you.
Thank you.